The concept of universal basic income may be coming to Chicago, at least on a trial basis. Last week, a resolution calling for the city to use dollars from federal relief funds for a basic income pilot program passed City Council. Some organizations have already been testing out the idea with Chicago residents, providing cash assistance for people to cover everything from rent to starting small businesses. However, there are some out there who are skeptical of a possible citywide program and instead are looking toward building up already existing social services. Joining us now with more on this issue are Bruce MEYER, the McCormick Foundation professor at the University of Chicago Harris School of Public Policy, where he studies poverty, among other issues. EBONY Scott, partnership director with the Family Independence Initiative, and Richard Wallace, the founder and executive director of Equity and Transformation. Welcome all of you to Chicago tonight. To EBONY Scott, first of all, explain the concept of universal basic income to us and how it would work in the city of Chicago.
Sure. Glad to be here again with you, Paris. The concept of universal basic income or guaranteed income, as you might also hear it, is pretty simple. It is a system in which either the government or another entity provides a reoccurring payment to individuals or families.
And you have run a program with a select few participants here in Chicago for a couple of years now. What have the results been?
The results have really mirrored what you see across the country and internationally when it comes to direct investment or direct cash transfer programs. We have seen the myth that cash disincentivizes work be busted. In fact, our families, we've currently enrolled 500 in Chicago. Our data mirrors that those families are actually doing more work because they now have the means to start a small business, launch a side hustle, or even take on a part-time job to be able to save. We also see increases in income and savings. And then we also have been tracking the spillover effects of social capital. When you invest cash into families and individuals, it enables them to be a better, stronger resource in the communities that they're a part of.
All right, Bruce MEYER, you don't believe universal basic income is the best approach to tackling poverty. How come?
If you make the benefits high enough to help those that are really needy, it's just prohibitively expensive. And there is a lot of evidence that providing unconditional cash transfers to people does discourage work. When we moved from a unconditional welfare system to one that encouraged work, it provided benefits to those who worked. We moved from 45% of low educated single mothers working to 75% over a short period of years in the 90s.
And so what you're saying is you would rather see more funds to bolster existing social programs?
Absolutely. More money to human services and employment security. I think the money would be better spent there, more targeted to those who really need it.
All right, Richard, you started a UBI, Universal Basic Income pilot on the west side, and you're targeting a very specific population. Tell us about your program and who benefits.
Yes, Richard Wallace here. And our program, West Garfield Park Futures Fund, focuses on system impacted and formerly incarcerated people on the west side of Chicago, particularly in the West Garfield Park neighborhood. The aim of our study focuses on looking at income volatility, psychological wellness, and recidivism rates.
And specifically, this is private money that is going, and tell us how much cash that your participants get.
Our participants will receive $500 a month for 18 months during the study.
What have you seen?
Oh, we haven't launched our study officially yet.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're launching it.
In June, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll let you know what we see, though. But we have been looking at projects like the Seed Project in Stockton, which is similar to ours.
And EBONY, your project has been around for a couple of years, but what about that criticism from Bruce MEYER that it actually discourages work and the money would be better spent on social welfare programs?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't believe that to be true. The University of Pennsylvania studied the Alaska Permanent Fund, which looked at the impact of work with recipients there. And they also saw an increase in work amongst people. Additionally, I strongly disagree that it's prohibitively expensive. The city of Chicago alone allocates $1.42 billion annually to what they call community services. And yet we continue to see poverty rates rise. We continue to see housing instability. It's actually more expensive to continue to not invest in directly in people.
And
Because
Ebony,
Oh,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
but Bruce also brought up the prohibitive cost or the cost to city government. Say the city instituted a universal basic income program for all low-income residents. What do you think that would cost taxpayers?
I think it's hard to predict because it depends on the amount and the cadence of those payments. But what I can tell you is that when you do a really smart and targeted distribution, you actually can bring down the overall cost of supporting communities. I think the way in which Cook County rolled out their cash assistance program is a really great example of that. They looked at folks who prior to the pandemic had, one, been living in historically underinvested in communities and who were already living at 150 to 200% of the poverty line. And so no one is really suggesting that these payments go out blindly to everyone. But the reality is you have a set of communities where we've poured billions of dollars into them annually, and very little has changed in the positive direction. And there is a mountain of evidence. The other impact that we continue to see are the benefits to mental health. Poverty is toxic. Poverty causes toxic trauma. Those are facts. And the best way to lift people out of that is to cure the poverty, which is an absence of cash.
Bruce, what about that? Direct payments like this could have a stimulative impact, and some of these welfare programs are bloated without a whole lot of results. What about that argument?
Well, Ebony and I may agree more than was suggested in that she talked about targeting and not giving the money blindly to everyone. But the essence of a UBI is just to give money to everyone. And that's the problem with it, not target it to those that are really needy. And, you know, if you do target it to those that are disabled, those that are elderly and don't have savings and a pension, those single mothers who really can't work, then that's good. But that's not the essence of a universal basic income, which is to give money to everyone.
So it's important to distinguish here between basic income, targeted, like you're saying, and universal basic income. You know, a criticism came from City Council's Black Caucus that the city should be focused on reparations first. Let's hear what Alderman Jason ERVIN said about that.
Until we deal with the issue of reparations in the city of Chicago, there's no way in hell we can support direct payments to anybody other than the American descendants of slaves in the city of Chicago. I think these conversations are a slap in the face to people that have suffered great atrocity through time in this country.
Richard Wallace, what about that? Can a basic income program coexist with a reparations program, or should reparations be considered first?
I think we have to learn to walk and chew gum at the same time, right? We have a real issue in the city of Chicago where we have nearly 81% of young Black men aged 17 to 24 being unemployed in places like West Garfield Park. Black unemployment rate has been twice that of white workers at nearly every level for decades. And so guaranteed income is simply a way to say, if you make X amount of money or fall within X demographic, you will receive relief. And I was listening to some of the other conversations as it relates to jobs and access to jobs. And I'm just like, when and where has this existed? We have one of the highest racial wealth gaps in the nation. We have one of the highest Black unemployment rates in the nation. And I think one of the most unique components of the social contract is the assumption that you are going to have access to the formal economy in one way or another. Our organization focuses on the informal economy, essentially because that is the only thing that's left for our people to acquire labor or acquire wages in our state.
All right, well, there's a lot to talk. It's a big subject. I'm sorry, we're out of time, Richard. A lot to talk about here, and our thanks to Bruce MEYER, Ebony Scott, and Richard Wallace.
Thank you.